Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here today, and let's talk about sales. The idea, insight, or sales secret you need for massive impact is just moments away. It's time for Get More Clients. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Get More Clients. I'm your host, Lynn Whitbeck. Business owners and entrepreneurs hire me to ignite winning sales because most are chasing down leads, lack client retention, conversion, and profit. The mission of this show is to share Fortune 500 sales secrets to help you open the vault to your greater business success. I'm going to start with a quote. If you run an honest business, your products and services provide value to those who buy. When you promote your products and services, you persuade prospects to recognize the value. You persuade them to act in their best interest. This is not an imposition. This is a gift. Now, this quote is from my good friend, Tom Ruich, and he's been a guest several times, and I encourage you to check out those episodes. And it's a really good frame for today's show. Now, last week, I shared my 5 favorite resources for you to make more time and money. Today, I'll be sharing what is the #1 sales killer and how you avoid it. What is your #1 sales killer? Do you recognize it? Have you owned it, faced it, conquered it? Or are you still floundering, wondering where to even start to fix it? There are 4 key steps to avoid and eliminate your #1 sales killer. By the end of today's show, you will know what is the #1 sales killer, how to identify your #1 sales killer, and the 4 steps to avoid and eliminate your #1 sales killer. If you want to close more sales, help more people, and create greater impact, you must dig deep to understand your #1 sales killer. Then take action to overcome and conquer. So, what is the #1 sales killer? Right now, I am going to tell you what is really important is your #1 sales killer. What are you not doing? Or what did you do? The possibilities are equivalent to the sideways 8, infinite. There are so many things that could be the #1 sales killer. Now, I am going to provide you with the top 7 that I see literally every day. The #1 is not thinking like your client. You're focused on what you do, how you help people, what you help them accomplish. You're not thinking like your client because they're the ones who are making the decision. You have to get out of your own way and get into their head. Now, I've got a simple, very simple solution, which is what do they want, need, or lack, why it matters, so they can. And I talk about this all the time. And this is what you use all the way through your sales process. Because that what they want, need, or lack, why it matters to them, what's in it for them, what's keeping them up late at night, and that's so they can, the goal, the dream, the initiative that they are trying to achieve. It does shift slightly through the sales progression. You're going to get deeper as you ask questions, as you learn more about them and their situation. So it will evolve, and it evolves after they become a client and over time when they give you repeat business. All right, so let's move on. The #2 sales killer. And this is really, it was a close tie with #1, I have to tell you, and that's the failure to follow up. Most of your prospects are not ready to make an instant decision. Okay? It's not going to happen. They require nurturing through follow-up. guiding them to a decision, right? That act of persuading them to act in their best interest. So here's a fun fact. 80% of the sales are made by 20% of those who follow up. That is brilliant. Do you want to make 80% of the sales of your sales? Well, then follow up. All right. And once again, I've done a bunch of episodes about follow up. Go back and listen to those. Watch them, embrace them, incorporate them into your sales strategy, your sales process. All right. Number 3. This is one that I had to own. It's talk way too much. And I have been guilty of this in the past. I had to unlearn this this desire to just jump into the conversation and take over and start talking. I had to learn to literally bite my tongue and shut up and let my client, my prospect, talk. You need to listen 80% of the time. Ask relevant questions and ask them to tell you more or help you understand. This is where you wear that detective hat. And my trick was that when I started doing that, I would actually sort of put my hand and sort of put my fingernails on my wrist, like, Lynn, you're talking too much. Shut up. It was a conscious thought, and a little subconsciously sort of bite my tongue and think Nancy Drew. You're Nancy Drew now. You're the detective. You've got to listen and you've got to ask questions. When you listen, your prospects will tell you everything you need to know. All right, the number 4 sales killer. Your communication does not speak to your clients, your prospects, why. So that's where client thinking comes in. This is where a deep dive into your ideal client avatar really manifests, because you must thoroughly understand your ideal client avatar. What are those core pain points? What are those areas of frustration? What are the emotions and the motivations around those? And then you craft your communication with their why in the front. Their perception equals truth. And that's how you connect, you attract, connect, and convert when you speak their language. What's the core problem you solve, but what's the core problem they are looking to have solved? And how does what you do translate? So what is the core problem or the situation or the dream that they are trying to achieve? You've got to understand that. What's the transformational arc that they are seeking, the impact that they're looking in their life, in their business, in their community? The most powerful emotions around that problem, what are those? And what are the biggest fears that they have around that problem? All right, number 5, sales killer. You're not seeding the idea of referrals from the beginning of your conversation. And you're not asking for the referral when you've earned the right. So referrals are the easiest and fastest sales you will ever make. You are killing your sales when you don't ask for referrals when you've earned the right, when you haven't laid the groundwork, plowed the road or the field, and laid the seeds so that you can then harvest these incredibly valuable referrals. You need to have a referral process baked in to your sales plan. Number 6 of our sales killers, the most common sales killers that I see from my clients: if something goes sideways, you fail to perform the necessary emotional repair. So it's not just a matter of fixing the problem or the issue, the challenge. Here's the thing. People are emotional beings, all right? It's the most common denominator of human beings. We're emotional beings. Even the most buttoned down individual is a mass of emotions raging under the surface. To fully recover from a challenge or even a perceived mistake, remember, if it's a perceived error from your client, you must perform emotional repair to build your client's trust. When you fail to do this, you will plant a bitter seed and you will lose that client. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but down the road. And they will cease to be a source of introductions and referrals. And they may even whisper about you behind the scenes when they meet other peers. So absolutely, make sure you perform the emotional repair. Now, number 7, I promised you 7. What's killing your sales? For some of you, you don't ask for the sale. All right, this is so simple. But bottom line, if you don't ask, you don't get. You've got to ask for the sale. And there's all kinds of ways that you can ask for the sale. Would you like to start on Monday, or would you like to start on Monday the 17th? I mean, that's like either or. That's a soft close. They can choose. It's not a yes or no. Like, no, they can say, no, I don't want to start on Monday, but let's look at, or that date, let's look for this date to get started, right? How many team members do you want to include in our kickoff session? I mean, that's an indirect way of asking for the sale. All right. Got a whole episode about closing techniques. If you don't feel comfortable asking for the sale, you're going to need to figure that out, because the biggest thing here is that you have to identify your number one sales killer. Your number one sales killer is not the same as mine. Well, I mean, maybe you talk too much too, and you're literally talking yourself out of the sale. Okay. So some of you are going to know in your gut what is holding you back and killing your sales. You already have identified and recognized a pattern. And you know what? It usually boils down to 3 things about this. Is A, when you're trying to fix this, is maybe you don't know what to do or say to fix it. You could have a negative mindset about sales in general, especially when you're not asking for the sale or you're not negotiating properly. If it makes you uncomfortable, this is going to be a more significant limiting belief that requires you to dig deep to overcome it. And the third thing is to get the training and the resources that you need to solve this number one sales killer. Okay. So I'm going to go through each of these one by one. So when you don't know what to do or say, I mean, you sort of figured out what the problem is, but you don't know how to fix it. And this manifests itself in so many ways. It could be outreach, prospect meetings, follow-up, negotiation, handling objections, and asking for the sale. That you're not really sure what to do or say. And there is a very simple solution. Follow a sales blueprint that fits your style and unique business model. Get this training and the education and the practice that you need so that you can learn how to acquire this skill. All right. Last time I checked, nobody knows how to ride a bike the first time they get on it. They're going to wobble around, if not flip over. So, and you know what? I hear you. Whoa, whoa, whoa. A sales blueprint. What? Well, it's ready and waiting for you with my 12-step sales plan checklist. And every week, right here, I teach and train on those 12 steps. So if you already know what's holding you back, what's not working right, pursue getting the training and practice so that you can overcome. And soon you'll be riding that bike like a pro. All right. That number 2 that I talked about is a negative mindset about sales. This is something I see all the time, especially with entrepreneurs and very small business owners. They have an area of expertise. It wasn't sales. They were an accountant, they were a financial advisor, they're a mindset coach. They're a consultant in a very specific area of operations or risk management. So they were never in sales, and they don't like sales. And it ranges from being literally uncomfortable about asking for the sale to downright avoiding asking for the sale, just not liking any part of the process. And this is a mindset issue. And so I'm going to go ahead and repeat the quote from Tom. If you run an honest business, your products and services provide value to those who buy. When you promote your product or services, you persuade prospects to recognize the value. You persuade them to act in their best interest. That's not an imposition, that's a gift. In other words, asking for the sale is a gift for your future client because of the massive impact you will create for them. Now, I talk about this all the time, and that was something I had to recognize when I was working with clients because I love sales. I have always recognized the value that I deliver, and I knew that I was providing a gift. From the simplest thing that when I was selling printing back in the day, I knew that I was taking that project off their plate and they wouldn't have to think about it again. It's just going to be delivered perfectly and on time, right? It was something I was taking off their plate. That was a gift. And that they didn't have to think about it, worry about it, stress about it. That's a gift. All right. So now what I do, it's a gift. I'm helping my clients realize their full potential for their business by developing and building a really robust sales blueprint and processes that they can follow, replicate, and have it be consistent as they grow their team. They've already got the roadmap for them to get on board. It's an amazing thing, and that they can then help and serve more clients for their business, what their product and services provide. So here's an idea. I want you to think about using Tom's quote and modifying it to fit your personality. Okay, so you may change out some words, really directed about your product or service, what you do, the impact, the transformational impact you create, and then write it out and say it out loud every morning when you get up. I want out loud as soon as you get up, and use it as an affirmation. Pin it to your inspiration board or right next to your computer screen. You've got to own it and live it and really embrace how wonderful you are and the impact that you create for your prospects to guide them to a decision that will change their life for the better, change their business for the better. Well, there is another side. There's always a shadow side. And this could be that you have a significant self-limiting belief. If your mindset, you don't like sales, you think it's slimy, sleazy, icky, you don't want to ask for the sale, you feel so uncomfortable doing it, you stumble over it every time, every fiber of your being hates sales, then most likely you have an unconscious self-limiting belief. And this is going to require more work, uncovering what happened in your past, the root cause of that belief, and then breaking it down so that you can disassemble it, break through, and assemble a new thought process. And I am going to be really clear, I am not a mindset coach, but I know some really terrific and fantastic mindset coaches. So if this is you, Just ask, and I'm going to be able to point you in the right direction. So I promised to give you the 4 steps to overcome and eliminate your number 1 sales killer. I've actually been talking about that this whole show. And the 4 steps to overcome and eliminate your number 1 sales killer. I'm sorry. And it's really straightforward. Okay, so let's go through this. Step 1, you got to identify, what is my number 1 sales killer? What is happening? You got to recognize that challenge. You've got to figure this out. Now, as I said, some of you are already going to know. It's like, oh yeah, I never follow up. That's killing your sales, honey. But others, you may not be quite sure, and you may need help from peers, team members, family, friends, or a coach. One thing that you can do is, many times your sales pitch, your sales conversation, that exploration call where you're kicking this all off, occurs over a video, like a Zoom, like we're on. And when you're doing that, you can look back at that recording. You can have others sort of assess it. What happened? What happened in that conversation? So you might be able to see what's happening in an early stage. As you continue and you follow up and you have additional meetings, because most people are not ready to buy the first time out of the gate, you can look at those subsequent videos and see if you identify a pattern, something that you're doing that's turning off your prospect. Okay. So that's one idea of how you can work through that. This is like literally a whole nother episode to dive into this. So let's move to step 2. All right. So you figured that out. What's your number 1 sales killer? Now you have to acknowledge, you got to own it, that this is a challenge. I've got to unlearn this and relearn the skill or skills to overcome this. And you have to accept that you want to change or shift this behavior, whatever it happens to be. Yeah, remember for me, I told you, I recognized early on that I was talking too much. And one of the things that I had is I had a really fantastic mentor who came out with me on a few sales calls and I was also able to mirror him, go on his, and I could see that he was always very much listening that 80% of the time. And that was something we identified right away. And I came up with an actual physical way where I would actually hold my hand. Often, you're under a table, because I was doing in person, and I could just, you can still do that in the video. I'm doing it right now. I just push my fingernails into my wrist, and it sort of like it was this physical, like, oh, stop. What are you doing? And then that thought, okay, hold your tongue, you've got to listen. And that was a really important thing. And I happen to love Nancy Drew. I had read all the Nancy Drew books when I was young. And, I just went and, hey, be Nancy Drew. You've got to be a detective. You've got to figure out what's really going on. So that worked for me. So in some cases, as I said, may require some deep work to understand the unconscious belief that's driving the behavior. So you're going to have to dig in the garden to figure this out. All right, now step 3 is you must learn the skills that you need to shift the behavior. So in some cases, let's say you're really not good at closing. Well, learn some closing techniques, right? You've got to learn closing techniques. Find one that fits and feels good for you. Got to have some alternatives, because you often are going to have to ask for the sale more than once. All right. So these are things that you're going to learn skills and shift your behaviors. Sometimes you have to do both. And as I've mentioned, if the root cause is something from your past, it's remember the 2 types of fears, then you're going to need to unlearn and relearn to break through. Now, step 4, it's like anything. You've got to practice. You got to modify and then refine to master this skill or this new behavior. So I want to give you a really fun example. So it was in Ted Lasso season 3. I don't know how many of you have seen Ted Lasso. I love that show. I actually have gone through the entire series 3 times. I mean, that sounds funny, but I have. It's just feel good, right? So in this episode, Jamie Tart is teaching Roy Kent how to ride a bike, and they're in Holland, and they have a purpose. They want to ride out to see a windmill, because Roy doesn't believe that there really are windmills, because in town, they're fake windmills. And Jamie's going, no, we just have to get right out of town. Let's get these bikes. And he discovers that Roy doesn't know how to ride a bike. And when Roy first gets on that bike, I mean, first of all, he can hardly stand up on the bike and with his both feet not on the ground, because he just sort of tips over. This is really funny. And then as he starts to ride, he's wobbling all over. He doesn't even know how to stop, and he crashes into things. And as they continue that evening to ride, he starts to be able to ride. And he's still pretty shaky, but eventually he's riding that bike pretty good. And they ride out to see the windmills. So, and then they ride back, right? And that's that perfect lesson that you've got to practice everything. It's not going to come perfect the first time. You've got to be willing to fall off the bike, right? All right. So as we wrap up, what is your number one sales killer? My challenge to you is to invest the time to figure it out and then take action to fix it. You'll thank me, and so will your bottom line. What was your biggest takeaway from this episode? I would love to hear about it. It's important to support the things you love. If you loved this episode, a 5-star review really helps keep the podcast, the show, coming to you regularly. Also, if you want to get more sales strategies to grow your business, make sure you subscribe right now. Today, I explored what is the number one sales killer and how you avoid it. The key is for you to implement these steps to stop wasting time, energy, and resources. If you want to get results even faster, I invite you to download my sales strategy checklist at petite2queen, that's a digit 2, queen.com/checklist. One word. Now, next week on Get More Clients, I'm going to be discussing what most people miss in sales and how to stop the pain. So this has been me, Lynn Whitbeck, host of Get More Clients, and I will see you next time.